yourself being drawn into situations that take you away from your spiritual life, not because because you're a bad person and you're not a spiritual person, but because you might be feeling, this is my first job, my first career job, and I want to do a good job so I can get promoted. Or this is the first time I have money because I have a job and I'm not a broke student anymore, and I want to focus on growing that money by investing or buying a property, and I need to focus my time and energy on that. So this overcommitment can take lots of different shapes and lots of different forms, and it's going to be different for every individual person. But it's a problem. And it's something that we have to work on and think about and recognize so that we can overcome it. I said this is related to what I talked about last time because ultimately this is part of discernment, about making good choices and how you make good choices and why it's important to make good choices. And we all know it's important to make good choices. Everybody knows that from when they're a little kid. What we're going to talk about today is how it is crucial to use discernment to create healthy boundaries, because that is the key to maintaining your spiritual life. And maintaining your spiritual life is what's going to get you all the things you want in your life, despite whatever setbacks or hardships or difficulties you're going to encounter. Martin talked about the story of Joseph. I love the story. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I know lots of people who are stuck in jail. So I always love the story of Joseph because it is really a story about resilience. But it's also a story about faith and about him relying on his faith and prioritizing his spiritual life and setting boundaries that were unpopular and difficult for him to maneuver and achieving success as a result of that. It's actually perfect. Your unprepared YouTube presentation fits perfectly with what I'm talking about. So great job, okay? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Setting clear boundaries is not selfish. It's not unkind. It's an act of wisdom, of humility, of discernment. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay. Ultimately, as a starting point, I think we have to recognize that why we need to have boundaries. There's basically a couple reasons why we got to have boundaries. First of all, it protects us from being overwhelmed, like I just kind of started by saying. And again, it'll allow us to grow spiritually because it gives us space for prayer, for peace, for a relationship with God. It helps us avoid sin, preserve integrity and purity, and it helps us to love others in the correct Christian, godly way without becoming entangled in people's drama or overly dependent on other people to make us happy instead of focusing on how I can make myself happy through my relationship with God. Okay? So that's why we have boundaries. We're going to see in a little bit, we're going to read out of the Bible, Christ himself set boundaries that were maybe unpopular, but important nonetheless. And so we're going to talk about that. So let's start by some of the scriptural foundations for healthy boundaries. And I'm going to ask us to read Bible verses. So I'm just going to ask somebody to just quickly pull up Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23. I can also make sure I have some of these sitting out here. But let's start with that one. And whoever gets it, please, somebody gets it, they could read it out loud. I'm going to pull it up here. Okay, does anybody have it? Or should I read it?
What chapter is it?
It's chapter 4, verse 23. I'll read it since I've got it here. So in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23, it says, Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life. What this is basically saying is that our heart, okay? And I'm not talking about the biological organ. I'm talking about our willingness to try and do good, our soul, our spirit, our being, our essence that makes us a human, not just simply an animal, okay? This is the core, right, of who we are as people. It's very clear. We hear about it all the time. The church teaches us that our heart has to be purified. It has to be protected. That's why we do all the stuff we do. That's why we're here. That's why we go to church on Sunday. That's why we take communion and we read the Bible and we have confession. That's why all this stuff, and it's a lot of stuff, right? It's pretty tough being a Coptic Orthodox person. It's not like you go to church, it's 30 minutes and you go home. It's like Mass is 3 hours. And I got to have a weird diet 2/3 of the year. And, there's all these weird rules and structure and tradition. Why are we doing all this stuff? We're doing all of this stuff because we believe it gives us a closer relationship with God and because it allows us to be purified. So if our heart, our core being is supposed to be pure, if we don't set limits on what we expose ourselves to, and that could be ideas, influences, relationships, people, the stuff we watch, the stuff we eat, all of those things, we risk spiritual confusion, we risk spiritual harm. And I think, I mentioned a second ago, part of being a Coptic Christian is, like I said, we have a weird diet 2/3 of the year. We're fasting. Some days we're eating fish. Some days we're not eating fish. Some days we're eating meat. Some days it's actually all part and parcel of the same thing. When we fast, fasting is not a diet, okay? It is a way of setting a boundary on what we eat, of saying, you know what? We spend so much of our lives focused on what we're eating. What am I going to eat for breakfast? And then what am I going to eat for lunch? My whole day is built around it. When we fast, is a way of setting a boundary. Hey, I'm not going to worry so much about this right now. I'll just eat whatever I can eat. It is not important for me right now in this period of time. And actually, we're supposed to fast Wednesdays and Fridays. It's supposed to be something we do on a regular basis. And I know I'm number one, I don't do that. This is hard for me to do because I love to eat. But again, it's an example of how we set boundaries for ourselves. So the first purpose, like I said, the spiritual foundation is to guard our soul, guard our being, guard our purity. That's one of the reasons why we have to set a boundary. The second reason we have to set boundaries is because Christ himself set boundaries. And he gives us a specific example of it. And I'll read this one also. I have the Bible right here. It's in Mark, the Gospel of Mark. In the Gospel of Mark in chapter 1, in verse 35, it says, "Now in the morning, having risen a long while before daylight, he went out and departed to a solitary place, and there he prayed. And Simon and those who were with him searched for him. When they found him, they said to him, 'Everyone is looking for you.' But he said to them, 'Let us go into the next towns that I may preach there also, because for this purpose I have come forth.'" And I should have said that the background behind this, if you go earlier in the chapter, it is the story of when Christ healed, he was healing sick people. So before the run-up to this part we read, Christ was out in the town, he was doing miracles, he was healing people, he went to sleep, okay? And it's the next day, what does he do? He removes himself from the people. He creates space to just himself, to pray, to have communion, meaning an interaction, a relationship, a conversation with God, the Father. And then when the disciples came, he said, "Hey, let's go back, do some more of that stuff you were doing. Do some more of those miracles. Everybody's waiting for you. They got a long line of people out there. They want you to heal them." And Christ said, "No. We need to go somewhere else now. And we need to go meet with other people." Christ obviously loved the people, but he also did not let everyone have access to all of him all of the time. He created a boundary. It was not driven by peer pressure. The disciples were saying, "Everyone's waiting for you. Come on." He said, "Nope. I know what I'm here to do is to go somewhere else. I know what I need to do right now at this moment in time is to have a conversation with God the Father." And so he himself set boundaries and set limits in ways that might be kind of, if you really think about it, maybe the disciples were like, what about, why are some people being healed and other people are not? Why are we leaving these people when they're clamoring for you? But he said, no, I have to set a limit. And so Part of what we're supposed to do as Christians is to imitate Christ. And so we also have to also set our limits. I'm not saying don't go help people, but we have to, and we're going to talk about this more a little later, we have to be careful and be mindful and zealously guard our own space and our own time with God. So that's kind of the biblical foundation for it. Why do limits promote spiritual growth? I said at the beginning that one of the reasons we have limits, we have to set healthy boundaries, is so we can have that spiritual growth. Well, why is it that a limit helps promote spiritual growth? Well, the first thing is that a limit protects you from burnout, and it protects you from temptation. So I said at the beginning, there's a tendency to overcommit yourself. And I think this is true all through your life as you get older. But I think it's particularly true, again, kind of in the stage of life where you guys are at. When you always say yes to everyone, when you always say yes to everything, yes, I'll come with you to this thing, and yes, I'll go with you to that thing, and yes, you can call me and talk my ear off for 2 hours about the drama with your boyfriend, or yes, you can, yes, I'll come with you to this thing I don't really want to go to, okay? The more you say yes to everyone, you only got so much time and energy and bandwidth. Who's gonna get the burner? Who's gonna be on the back burner? Is it gonna be your friend? Is it gonna be your family? Or is it gonna be your relationship with God? And I think for a lot of people, and I'm number one, it's my relationship with God is what suffers. I have too much on my plate. I goofed off all week and now I got a final on Monday. Well, I guess I'll just skip church on Sunday because I need to study. I'm not preaching, I'm confessing. Okay, that's what I did when I was in college and in law school. Okay, hey mom, I'm not making it to church. So I got to study. I got stuff to do. Well, why didn't I do it the day before? I was too busy doing other stuff the day before. It becomes very easy to say, well, you know what? The thing I'm going to say no to is my spiritual relationship with God. So boundaries are like a fence that help us keep our spiritual garden from being trampled by everything else. It's a way of saying, hold on a second. Saturday morning is the time I go pray, take communion, have my time with God. Or 10 o'clock Friday night or 9 o'clock Friday night is when I make time out to come spend time with my brothers and sisters in Christ and have fellowship. And, Christ said when two are gathered in my name, he's there. And we're like way more than 2 people, right? So that's important. In Ecclesiastes chapter 3, there's a very famous saying. It's like, to everything there's a season, a time for, and there's an old song from the 1960s. I'm aging myself now. A time to love, a time to pray, it's the same idea. We're not obligated to meet everyone's needs at the moment they want them met. Spiritual growth, like Christ showed us, requires solitude, it requires reflection, and it requires rest. And so we have to give ourselves the time to do that in order to have that relationship with God. The second reason, beyond just protecting us from burnout and temptation, is that limits help us say no to sin. Okay? When you have independence, when you're on your own really for the first time, you're going to be faced with all sorts of temptations. And there's there's the generic obvious ones, sexual temptation, drugs, alcohol. Okay, sure. And you guys all know you have to be on the lookout for that. But it's more than just that. It's also unhealthy friendships or unhealthy relationships with other people who suck all your time and give nothing in return. Or other kinds of addictive behavior. Like I'm spending 5 hours a day on YouTube. Okay? YouTube is not bad by itself, but if you're on there all day long scrolling one video after another, that's a problem. So being aware of that and saying, hey, I'm only going to do this thing for an hour. Or, oh my God, this person's calling me, I can only give her 30 minutes. Is a way to keep your sanity, but it's also a way to make sure you don't fall into the traps of sin. And it's just, part of that spiritual warfare. And it goes, even eating, again, it's the same thing. I was eating dinner at my mom's house. She brought a tub of ice cream and she put it right in front of me. And I love ice cream. So it was like, I'm going to scoop out some chocolate, ate some chocolate. I'm like, I want another scoop of chocolate. And they have to set a boundary. No, I said 1 scoop of chocolate. That's it. I went to the mango instead. Okay? So I'm feeling very good for myself. Okay? But that's just a simple, silly example of the bigger issue. We have to say, hey, hold on a second. I'm only going to do this for an hour. I'm not letting this spill into my time that I have a conversation or communion with Christ. So these are the things we're talking about, like in a very abstract, theoretical way. How do we do this in practice? Because it's easy to recognize there's an issue, but how do you actually deal with it? So first of all, we have to create physical boundaries. Okay? So we have to be pure. We have to protect our health with rest, with self-care. Got to exercise and eat well and sleep 8 hours a day and drink plenty of water and, avoid environments that are bad for us, that are going to foster sin. So we're all here on a Friday night. That's great. That's setting a good boundary. Okay? So that's the easy part. The harder part is we have to set emotional boundaries. Okay? And this is hard because, again, you're going to find that people, the thing we're worried about is that people drain our time and drain our energy in ways that are counterproductive or negative. Okay? We are not responsible for everyone's emotions or choices. And love does not mean enabling or fixing or absorbing other people's burdens. That doesn't mean if somebody comes to you with a problem, you blow them off and say, well, I got to keep a boundary, so this is your problem, not my problem. Okay? But it means that at some point, of course we're going to try to help people. And of course we want to listen to people and be a sounding board to them when they're feeling down and depressed. And of course we want to try to lift them up and pick them up. But at some point, you're going to have to say enough is enough if it does not going anywhere. Or if every time this person calls you, you end up blowing 3 hours of your day and you've accomplished nothing, and that person doesn't feel any better or nothing is changing, at some point you might have to say, I gotta cut this person off. Or I gotta watch the clock a little better and say, you only get 30 minutes. You may not be saying that to the person, but telling yourself, I'm only giving this person 30 minutes. There is a difference between helping someone and losing yourself in their crisis. And we have to avoid doing the latter, losing ourselves in someone else's crisis. Because that kills our time and it kills the spiritual time that we're going to have with God. So if you find yourself sacrificing your peace or your spiritual life or your prayer in the relationship with another person, and again, this could be a romantic relationship, it could be a completely platonic friendship. If there's not a mutual respect of time and boundary, then that is not a healthy relationship. And that is one that needs to be really examined very carefully to see if it's worth continuing. Because a true, meaningful relationship is one that goes both ways. Somewhat related to that is what are called relational boundaries. In other words, we set sort of clear expectations in friendships and relationships, and you define what you will do and what you will not do, what you will accept and what you will not accept in a clear way, and how, in terms of how other people treat you. If people are like mocking you for being religious, if they are drawing you into gossip or drama, that is not a person you should have a friendship with. And that part of setting those boundaries is saying, you know what, I don't need this person in my life. This is too much drama for me. You can still love that person and want the best for them, but it's important to set a limit and to say, you know what, I can't have this person intruding on my solitude, on my peace, on my relationship with God. Yes, I have a question here.
So what, practically speaking, so what if this is someone you interact with on a weekly basis or a regular basis? What do you mean by set boundaries?
So,
like practically speaking.
So we talked about this earlier. So basically, it's deciding for yourself how far you're willing to go with that person. So it could be, I'm only going to give this person 30 minutes. I said to myself, I know this person sucks up all my time. They get 30 minutes. I'll give you an example. I'll give you a real world example. I had a client who was very demanding on my time and who drove me nuts and also wanted to talk to me regularly. And so eventually what I learned was I couldn't leave it open-ended. I couldn't say, well, you can call me anytime or just text me when you want to call. That was too open-ended. He was going to kill all my time. I'd get nothing done. And then, of course, every time I ended a conversation with him, I felt irritated. Not a good set of boundaries. So what I ended up doing is I said, you know what? I'm going to give you 1 hour every week. And we're going to make it every Wednesday at 10 a.m. That's your time. That's the time for the two of us. Whatever, and that's 1 hour. I'm blocking it out in my calendar. That's your time to talk to me. But it's from 10 to 11. And 11 o'clock comes, I got to go. And you could be mid-sentence, but I got to go because I got other stuff I got to do.
It's different if you have a coworker.
Well, so we'll get to that in a second. So that worked pretty good, actually. And so I would come, it'd be like 9:45, I'd be like, oh, it's almost 10. I got to suck it up and get ready for my conversation. And I'd have my conversation, and he respected the boundary. He said, okay, I see it's 11 o'clock, we got to go. I said, yep, we got to go, it's 11 o'clock. And then we moved on. And then I felt good, because he got the time he needed. But I cabined it at an hour a week, when it used to be 2-3 hours a week. So I got back some of my time. So for that relationship, that's what worked. I'm not saying, you do that, you make a calendar invite for your friends to talk to. I'm not suggesting that, okay? But every person is going to have to examine that relationship and come up with a way to do it. So you mentioned a coworker. Coworkers, that's a whole other story, especially if you're in the same workspace. Like, you may not be able to be like, hey, we share a cubicle, and you can come turn around and talk to me all day. I used to work with somebody like that all the time. I used to pop into my office all the time, and I wanted to be like, bro, I need to get some stuff done. What would I do? I close my door. When my door is open, or I tell my kids in my house, I have a home office in my house. When my door is open in the home office, come as you please. But when the door is closed, if the door is closed, do not come in. Do not knock. You are not welcome. This is my time I've blocked out for myself. So you're going to have to come up with a mechanism that works for your specific situations. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you did. Yeah, that's helpful. So when it comes down to redefining your boundaries or leaving a job, like, what would you do?
If the job is making you upsetting I was literally just having this conversation with my sister, literally like today. Like, she's laughing because she was there. So if you should work to live, not live to work. And if a job or the people in your job are killing your peace, or making you miserable, or upsetting your spiritual balance, in my opinion, and I know it's easier to say this because I work for myself, so I don't ever have this problem, but you should look for another job. The job is not worth it. The money is not worth it. I literally just had this conversation with my sister. Money, God will take care of you. If you have faith that God will take care of you, put the problems in his hands. Doesn't mean you don't do your part, but if you have faith, God will take care of you, especially if your decision making is being based on the right reasons. If you're in a job where you're like, this job kills my time, makes me miserable, it affects my peace, affects my sanity, forget it. Go get a job that doesn't do those things, because there are people who like their jobs, and you should like your job, because you're going to be stuck doing it for your whole life, maybe not for that employer, but your career, right? You're gonna do it. And of course, not every workplace is great, and not every work job situation is ideal, and it's not a bad thing to want to try to do something different. And again, I understand, maybe financially you can't afford to switch the job right now. I'm not just saying you go and tell your boss, screw you, I'm out of here, and you don't have a backup plan, but it is totally fine to think, hey, this is impacting my sanity, it's impacting my peace, it's making me uncomfortable, it's taking me away from God, I need to get out of here. And I think that's what God expects of us. And I think God, and if you're doing it for that reason, God will find a landing spot for you. I mean, like, if we don't believe that God will take care of us, then what are we doing here? Right? Like, what's the point of all this? This is like a lot of extra stuff we're doing as human beings that we, like, that's what I tell my kids. Like, we believe these things because we believe them. Like, if you don't even believe the fundamental, like, God will help me find a landing spot, then why are we here? Let's go grab a drink. Like, let's go do something else. So I think that's how I view that. And now we've been talking about like interpersonal relationships, but I think all of these things apply to everything. It applies, and we already talked about food. We talked about what we watch. How much time do we spend online? How much time do we spend on social media or YouTube or whatever, okay, or TikTok or whatever, right? And it's, think about how much time we spend doing that versus how much time we spend like reading like a religious book. I'm like, hey, again, I'm not preaching, I'm confessing. Like I'm telling you, like I'm guilty number one. Like I spend way more time scrolling the news and looking for watches online than I do reading spiritual books. So it's like when I'm saying these things, I'm talking about it to myself too, that I'm also someone who needs to benefit from my own advice, right? But just for all of us to think through, like, am I giving the same amount of time and space or creating an environment where I can have the same kind of time and space to spend reading a spiritual book, reading the Bible, praying, contemplating on my life and my spiritual life. And so we have to block time for that. And it really has to be something conscious. And everybody is going to come up with their own ways. Maybe you are the kind of person who needs to like put like, in my calendar, it's 30 minutes of quiet time in my calendar. I don't know. Some people do that. Maybe that works for you. Some people are going to just have the... No, it's no problem. Hi, how are you? Come in. Some people are just going to have the spiritual ability to just do it through their own exercise of discipline or self-control or whatever. So again, everybody is going to have their own mechanisms they're going to use to institute these things in a practical level. But the key is to be thinking about them and to be thinking about how I can do this in reality. The final thing is how we establish these boundaries. One of the most important things is we have to, even before we set the boundary, we have to know what is it that the boundary is trying to protect. What are the values that I care about that I'm trying to preserve? And so I'm going to throw out a couple out there, and they're all important. Some may be more important to you than others, or some may be a bigger issue for you than others, and that's a personal thing. But think about, we're trying to protect our purity. We're trying to protect our peace. This kind of goes to the job thing. We're trying to protect the time so that we can have a spiritual relationship with God and be able to pray. Trying to protect our integrity. Who we are to the outside world. That people think this is a trustworthy person. This is a good person who means well and tries to do the right thing by other people. So that's also a really important part about establishing boundaries. That's really what it's about. We have to ask ourselves, what is it that I'm trying to protect? What is it that I'm trying to preserve? Because that's going to help you figure out what's important, how I can actually institute a plan to set aside the time for that. And then, finally, I'll just say, you have to be direct and you have to be honest and you have to be consistent. And that's the hardest part, because it's very easy to say, okay, I'm only going to have one scoop of ice cream. I was telling them, Amy, before you came, that I was eating ice cream today and I really wanted to have a second bowl of ice cream and then a third bowl of ice cream, but I went to the mango because I decided I'm only going to have one bowl of ice cream, okay? That's a simple, silly example. Okay, I did a good job today, but am I going to do a good job tomorrow? I really hope so, but I don't know, because I got a tub of ice cream in my freezer. So, all of those things are easy to do the first time, and maybe they're easy to do the second time, but can we do it on a consistent basis? That's where it gets hard. And that's true for ice cream, but it's also true for having that spiritual relationship with God and setting aside the time to have that spiritual relationship with God. Because stuff's going to happen. One day it's going to be like, there is an emergency I got to deal with. Or I feel lazy and I feel tired. I don't want to do this. I just want to watch TV for 5 hours, okay? That's how I feel sometimes. Everybody feels that way sometimes. There's nothing wrong with feeling that way. It's just a matter of saying, oh, I gotta stick to my plan. I gotta stick to the limits that I set. And that's one thing to stick to those in terms of just your own inner relationship with yourself. It's even harder when you are trying to institute those limits with other people. To say to the person, hey, I can only talk to you for 1 hour a week. That's it. It's a hard conversation to have because the person's going to feel kind of like, oh, I'm annoying you or I'm bothering you or you don't like talking to me. So it's hard to do it. But being direct is good because you need to have clear boundaries that are easy to apply and that people can understand. And now you do it with tact and you talk to people nicely and all that. But it's important to be clear and to be direct. Not just with yourself, but with other people too. People are going to resist this. Other people are going to not like it. If you're like, no, I got to go. My time limit of hanging out is over. Or, hey, I can't go with you guys out on Friday night because I got to be here in the church on Friday night. People are not going to like that. They're going to make fun of you. They're going to be like, come on, man, it's happy hour on Friday. Let's go grab a beer. You're going to be like, no, I got to be here. But that's okay. Go back to what Christ did in the book of Gospel of Mark. Jesus, come heal all these people. No, I'm good. I got to go do this other thing. That's what he said. And that's what we're supposed to model too. And he said that because he had a greater purpose for it. He had other people he wanted to see. He had he needed time with God. His own personal, private time with God. And so he had to create that boundary. We're expected to do the same thing. So that's all I have. But I'm happy to answer if anybody has any ideas or thoughts or disagreements or debate or they think I'm full of crap or, you wouldn't be the first or the last. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not a disagreement, just to clarify something.
Sure.
So in the middle, we were talking about setting limitations with friends where they're taking more energy out of you. So I get that the whole point is to focus towards them taking you away from God. But if it's towards helping a friend, is that limit still set at that point? Or is that an obligation to help a friend?
You should definitely help your friend. You should help everybody, frankly, friend or not friend, right? And what I was saying is there's a difference between helping someone and being consumed by their problem. Productively helping someone is good. And we should strive to do that. And maybe at the beginning, you don't know how it's going to shake out. Somebody comes to you with a problem. I got a problem with this person. Can you come help me, Mark, and deal with this problem? Now you might say, okay, yeah, let's go try to deal with this problem. And that's good. And you try. And you talk to this person. You talk to that person. I mean, this is how people are, right? But at some point, if it feels like, we've been at this now for 6 months. And nothing has changed. And, everyone feels very entrenched in their position. And this friend is now calling me, wants to talk about it for 2 hours every day. Maybe at some point you need to say, you know what? I need to take a little step back. This is now no longer being productive. This is just wasting my time. And that's I think, the difference. And again, it's not like in every dispute you only get 5 hours. There's no hard and fast rule, okay? Every situation is different and every situation is going to be unique. And every situation requires a different strategy or tactic or space, or maybe it's, we need to give it a break for 6 months and revisit it in 6 months. I don't know. Every situation will call for its own solution. But that's where I think that sometimes there's the tendency to we all want to help people, but sometimes if it's not really going anywhere and it's kind of killing our time and it's becoming something you dread dealing with, that's a sign that, we need to set a boundary. We need to set a limit. And, and I think, you're talking about a person with a problem you're trying to help, but it can come up in more fun ways too. If you're hanging out with your friend who you get along with really well, and the more time you spend with them, the less time you're spending time with your family or in the church or whatever. And I mean, this is what happens in romantic relationships, especially at the beginning. You know, I met the girl, she's really cute, I'm getting along with her, and now I don't want to hang out with my parents, and I don't want to come to church because I want to hang out with her, and, you know, and that's understandable, okay? But if it becomes, all of a sudden, I don't have time for church, and I don't have time for this thing, and I don't have time for these people, then that's where it becomes a problem, and you have to create a better balance. You know, you want, and again, it goes back to like mutual respect. Like any relationship, romantic or non-romantic, there has to be mutual respect of each other's time. It shouldn't be one person is pulling the other person into their orbit if their orbit is outside of God's orbit. That's where there's real danger. And again, that could be in a romantic relationship or a non-romantic relationship. And so it's just, the key is to be aware. You know, and I think that's a big part of it. Sometimes it's very easy to be consumed in the situation and not looking at the bigger picture, or not. And oftentimes what happens, it doesn't feel like it's all consuming or taking you away from other things, because you're like, I want to spend time with this person, but if you have to take a step back and say, well, hold on a second, you know. How is my balance? Am I too skewed on one end? Then I need to kind of have a balance. And that doesn't mean you say to the person, we're done, we're not dating anymore. It just says, why don't you come with me on Friday night? Why don't we, you know, block some time off together to do this thing together? Let's read the Bible together, okay? I know these sound kind of hokey, okay? But that's the truth, though. It's like, if you want to have the relationship be built around Christ and around your spiritual relationship, because like you're kind of wasting your time if it's not, honestly. So I hope that answered your question. Who has another question? Yeah.
I love to give myself an emotional excuse of why I can't have a boundary. Like it could be something, maybe a ton at church that wants to know some business that, you know, she's not supposed to ask about. And I keep hinting that, hey, not comfortable talking about this, but she's like, oh, I hate it with this, so we're not talking anymore if you don't call me and tell me what happened.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no. And I always tell myself, okay, I'll tell her. She thinks like, oh, we have a close relationship, like, she's like my mom or something. It's coming out of love, a place of love and care. Maybe I should tell her, and then I tell her, and then I feel bad that I didn't respect my boundary. And it happens with a lot of things. Like, oh, let's go grab some fast food after gym. I don't want to do it, but the company is good. We're gonna have fun. Yeah, let's do it. And then I just keep giving myself the emotional excuses of, oh, I shouldn't be spending this much. It's rent money, and I'm like, but you've been doing really well. You really should go and reward yourself. You've been working hard. I always give myself an emotional excuse of why I shouldn't maintain the boundary. And then I go like, but it was worth it.
Not just you, everybody. That's human nature. I do that too. I want the 2 scoops of ice cream. Okay? That's my simple. I don't have tons harassing me about my gossip, so that's good. But I definitely, want to eat 2 scoops of ice cream. So how do we get around that? Okay? That feeling you feel, that guilt, we just got to move it. We just got to reorient it. Put that first. Remember that in the moment. You have to remember, once I do this thing, I'm going to feel crappy about it afterwards. So I'm just not going to do it so I don't feel crappy afterwards. And then you'll feel really good in the moment. That's number 1. Number 2, you have to, again, remember. Well, actually 2 things you have to remember. The second thing is set a clear, easy to apply boundary. I keep going back to the ice cream because it's real simple. 1 scoop of ice cream, that is it. Or I have $100 and I'm only going to spend 10 of it. I'm thinking of my son who's 9. This is how he thinks of it, okay? He's also trying to learn how to do these things. So I got $100 for my birthday. I'm taking out 10 to spend. I'm only going to spend the 10. And then he always comes to me, can I have 11 actually? Can I have 12? No, 10. We agreed on 10. Set a clear, easy to apply boundary. So there's no wiggle room, no gray, none of that. The third thing, accept that people are going to be mad about it, and you just say, I don't care that you're going to be mad. Tant, I don't care if you don't tell her this, but you tell yourself, I don't care if she's going to get mad, she can get over it. Because my boundary is more important than her feeling. Because it's none of her business. And you have to set that boundary. And it's very hard to do this. Because the default in people is to please. You want people to be happy with you. You don't want people to be mad at you. But sometimes you have to accept. You're going to say things and do things that people are not going to like, and you just have to accept it. This is part of parenthood, actually. Okay? I have 2 kids. They think they know everything. They're 12 and 9. They don't know everything. They don't know all this stuff in the world. So it is up to me and Amy to tell them, no, you can't do this. And they get mad. Too bad. That's life. Get mad. I don't care. You'll thank me later. And I just tell myself that. And it gets harder as they get older. When they're little, it's really easy. It's like, no, Jonah, don't stick your finger in the plug. That's in the outlet. You're going to kill yourself. That's bad. Like, don't put foil in the microwave. It's going to cause a fire. Those are easy, but it gets harder. Why can't I hang out with my friends at 9 o'clock? Why can't I go to this person's house? Why can't I do this thing? And then you have to be strong and say, no, because this reason or that reason. And it's the same thing. None of this is easy. It doesn't come naturally. We have to remind ourselves to do these things. Because the human nature says, I want people to be happy. I want the smile. I don't want Tant to get mad at me and chew me out in Arabic. I want her to like me and be happy. But you set a boundary for yourself, assuming it's a valid, reasonable, proper boundary, and I'm sure it is, the boundary controls. Easier said than done, but that's the key to do it. Yes?
What are your tips on replacing like bad habits into like stuff that will bring you closer to God and like have discipline with it, not just like a couple of days reading the Bible and
What is the advice to like have to do things, make things last longer than just 2 days or 3 days?
yeah.
Okay.
Like you would replace social media with
Yeah.
something.
So I think the first thing is you have to be realistic about it. Like, if you are, you're not going to go from 0 to 100 in one day. Like, you just take a little piece at a time. So if you're on YouTube 5 hours a day, and you're like, I got a YouTube problem, and I need to get off YouTube. Okay, maybe it's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to move to 4.5 hours a day. You're not going to be like, it's 0, I'm cold turkey cutting it out and done. It's like, maybe I just need to taper myself off, wean myself off of it, okay? Right? That's what they do in the hospital. You have an accident, they give you morphine, they give you all these painkillers. They don't just, oh, you're healed? Okay, it's 0 now. No, they just slowly lower it out of your body. Same thing. And I think that's number one. Be realistic with yourself and create a system that is attainable. Number 2, you have to create an accountability mechanism of some sort. And this can really vary. It is going to vary. If it's, a friend who can hold you accountable, it could be a priest, it could be a servant, it could be something. But it needs to be not just you. Okay? It needs to be somebody you can report back to, It doesn't have to be a person. Maybe there's there's like weight loss apps, right? Like they pester you, right? That's sort of like the point, right? Like or the Apple Watch, okay? The Apple Watch, you can count your steps. Get up. Or, hey, good job. You got 30 active minutes today. These are like little triggers for our brain that gives us a little happy feeling, like, oh, sweet. Again, I closed my rings. Jonah comes tells me that, I closed my rings, Dad, I closed my rings. It's like, great, dude. So it makes him want to do it the next day, too. So maybe there's a way to do it there. So whatever it is. So if I read the Bible for 20 minutes today, I'm going to eat an extra scoop of ice cream. Like, that's me. I'm going to start using that one. Or I'm going to set aside a little, instead of the $5 I'm saving for the watch or the purse or whatever, I'm going to set $7 aside. Whatever it is. These are silly examples. But think of ways, like positive reinforcement is a very real thing for kids, for adults, for everybody. So if there's a way that you can create both an accountability mechanism but also reward yourself, that's the key. Easier said than done. All of these things, like I'm hypocrite number one. Like I say all these things and then I also struggle doing them because people get kind of set in their ways and it can be very hard to break your habits. But if you recognize how important they are, put an actual concrete plan into place that is easy to accomplish in little bits and pieces, it will get easier over time. You'll find yourself, oh, I really don't even want the second scoop of ice cream. I don't actually want to be on YouTube for 4 hours a day because I found all these other stuff that I could do, like shooting hoops or whatever it is. And I'm not saying like, be a monk or be a nun and pray 24/7. I'm not, live your life. But we fill our life with so much extraneous, unnecessary things that take away from more productive endeavors. And I'm saying we just think about that and recognize that and come up with a plan to break free from it. You will achieve the benefit.
For the gossip thing,
Yeah.
I just want to comment. If you imagine that the person in front of you is somebody, the person that you're gossiping about, you don't have to say it. Like, you could tell them, yeah, I wouldn't do that same for you. But if you just imagine that, then you wouldn't. I think that's a good it's an action.
Just putting yourself in someone else's shoes.
Yeah.
How would I
imagine,
feel?
telling someone's gossip to like them.
Yeah.
And like that person's actually in front of you. I think that would that helps.
That's a good way to describe it. Yeah, Mariam, you had a question.
Yeah, I
Or your
just
point.
had a comment about
Yeah.
the consistency thing. For me, I actually got started. I have an hour and a half drive to work. I always used to listen to music or podcasts or whatever, and I thought now it's like my prayer time. I just found a convenient. I mean, it's always convenient to pray, but I'm saying like a convenient gap that I was doing nothing in. And then now that just became my prayer time because that hour and a half I was just wasting listening to music. So now it just became like prayer.
So that's a great point. Thank you for sharing that. Because I think to your question, it's like you said it really good. You find the gap. You find the time to seamlessly stick it in there where like I'm not actually changing anything, really. I'm not like having to take away time from other stuff. I'm able to just weave it into my daily routine. I'm stuck in a car for 90 minutes. So that's another great point. So thank you for sharing that. Is there another? Yes.
Yeah, just along the same line, like a tip is to like tie it to something that you do every day anyways.
Yeah.
Like you always, take a shower at a certain time. Well, right after the shower, you're gonna do this thing.
Absolutely.
Or whatever it is.
Absolutely. Was there another? I thought I saw another. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we talked a lot about setting boundaries with bad things or things that harm you in a way.
Sure.
But what if it's something that is not harmful itself? It's the excess of it that is like harmful. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes. Actually, I would maybe disagree a little bit with your characterization. Like, it's always good to have a relationship with a person. It's good to eat ice cream. It's good to spend money. Like we have money to spend it, right? It's bad to spend too much money. It's bad to spend too much time with your friends that it's taken away from other things. It's bad to, eat too much ice cream. Okay, so I think the boundary is not tied to good things versus bad things. It's really about balance, I think. About making sure that there is not something that is so all-consuming of me that it's depriving me of other things or taking me away from other things or upsetting my peace or, skewing that balance. So that's really what we're talking about. And I think that, again, it starts with recognition of where I have room to improve and a recognition of what are the values that I care about that I'm trying to protect. And does this relationship with this person further those values or diminish those values? Does this habit further my spiritual values or take away from it? And anything that takes away from my spiritual values, and it doesn't mean like, again, I'm not talking about some extreme example, I'm talking about like if it just makes you, if every time this person calls, we end up making fun of people or talking smack about other people, it's a bad thing. It's not bad to be friends with someone. It's not bad to even be friends with that person. But maybe the boundary I need to set with that person is I'm not going to engage in that. I'm not going to talk about people with that person. You know what I mean?
Maybe let me clarify a little.
Sure.
For example, like with serving,
Mm-hmm.
like I feel like a couple of us can relate about like us doing a couple of different things at the same time, and it's like each person is waiting for you to do the service, and it's like it brings you closer to God, or like you're in God's house. It's like good things, but because it's so much of it, you're taken away in like so many different things, and then when you tell someone, hey, I can't do that, they're like, it's for God, it's service. So it's like, how do you set a clear
Absolutely,
boundary
that's a
like
great
the
point.
guilt of like, I have time for other things in life, why am I not using it for church stuff?
So
or-
we talked about balance. Let's just say it out loud. It is a burden to serve. It wouldn't be service. Service is supposed to be hard, okay? Otherwise, it's not service. That's just like having fun, okay? When you think about the word serve someone, you come to my house and I serve you dinner. That means I have woken up, I have prepared the food, I definitely have the ice cream ready to go, okay? I prepared the food, I've been cooking for 2 hours, 3 hours, and then you come to my house and you sit. You didn't cook anything, you're not going to clean anything. I'm going to bring you the food, and I'm going to take the plate. I'm going to feed you dessert. I'm going to take the plate, and then we're going to sit. We're going to talk. We're have a great time. You're going to go home. I'm going to stay up for another 2 hours. I'm going to clean those plates. I'm going to load up the dishwasher. I'm going to go to bed at midnight. I'm going to be exhausted. That is service. Serving in the church is that on steroids, because there's like a billion people, and the kids love to make a mess, and everybody is Egyptian, so they want to eat a ton and stay up till midnight. Okay, I know. So as a starting point, service is hard. And that's why God rewards you for doing it. But the service has to come from a place of good spiritual intentions. And I'm not questioning anyone's intentions here. But what I'm saying is, if the service becomes too much service, that it becomes like a job, that's a problem. Your spiritual balance is not in sync anymore. And it's skewed. And then you got to have a boundary. And that boundary is to say no. I cannot do this thing. And like Mira was saying, people are going to get mad at you. But we need you to do this. We want you to do this. They're going to say something to you in Arabic. I can't describe what it is because I don't know how to say it. Okay? And you have to say no. You just have to say, I cannot do this. I'm sorry. You have to be clear about it. You have to give people enough time to prepare for it. You can't spring it on them 10 minutes before. You can't quit in the middle of it. You have to say no in a tactful way. But if it's really taking you away, if you come to the church to serve for God, but then the whole time you're mad about it, or you're irritated, or you feel like pissed off, you should not serve. You find a different way to serve. Do something else. Take a break. And there's nothing wrong with that. And anyone who gives you a hard time and says anything we don't care about them. They don't. That's their problem to deal with. And it's important to not only recognize that, but to say that's okay. It's okay to feel that way. It's good to feel that way. What happens is people become dependent on the same 5 people doing everything, and so they are like, I get to have dinner. I don't have to cook or clean or do nothing. And that's not how the world works. And that's not what God wants for us. God wants people to serve with joy. Not to serve out of, because this is my job. This is like an unpaid internship where I have to work 50 hours a weekend. It's crazy. So I think that anyone who gives you grief about that is, their heart is not in the right place. And what matters is your relationship with God and how you approach the service. You should say no. And you shouldn't feel bad about saying no. You should say no in a correct way, in a tactful way. Don't get into arguments with people. Help them find somebody else. Give them enough advance time so that they can deal with it. And it also allows people to step up other people to serve. Because it takes a village, right? Does that answer your question a little better? Okay, good. Any other thoughts or comments or questions or issues or disagreements or anything? Okay, well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciated it. We'll see you guys in 2 months.